today's Satsang. It's at the Hedekanda University Ashram. We're hosting it, but it's also about the ashram and the early days. And we go back to the early 80s with James Goward traveling around looking for a place to build an ashram in America, and Betsy, and coming here and meeting David and Lorraine. And do you want to start, Betsy, since you have limited time about?
Yeah, I guess the significant thing about getting to Crestone was Thomas Binyakya was in Berkeley, and James made arrangements to go see him and ask him about where a ashram could be located on the West Coast. And he just said, go see Hannah Strong in Crestone. That's basically what he said. Go see Hannah in Crestone. So that's what we did. And I was blown away. I was just blown away by Crestone. So then I contacted the Samaj to come out and take a look to see if it would be an appropriate spot for a temple. And then our subsequent trip out to Colorado. And indeed, it was fitting. It was perfect. So there, Ramloti took it from there.
Not exactly. There are a lot of other hands. Can someone explain to people who Thomas Binyakya is? Betsy, do you want to do that?
Yeah, Thomas Binyakya.
Even better. Go ahead.
Thomas Binyakya at the time was a spokesperson for the Hopi elders, and he's no longer around. And yeah, you want to say something about Thomas, James?
Well, he invited us to come to Crestone and to visit and meet everybody, and that's when we decided to gather and have an ashram, which turned out very nicely. So, yeah.
Hannah was giving away pieces of land to spiritual groups that qualified. And so that's where we got the land. And Shastriji and Muni Raj, when they were here, sort of picked out the piece that they liked, and it turned out very, very well. So
Yeah.
those wonderful people. Yeah. David and Lorraine, you have anything to say about the beginnings?
Yeah, I just would like to say that Thomas was the Hopi prophet. He was the carrier of Hopi prophecy, and so he was a most significant individual, and he did know Hannah, and he directed James and Betsy to Crestone, where they bumped into Lorraine, and actually Whitney Wolf Strong was working at the hotel there, and James and Betsy were talking to her, and she called up Lorraine and said, Lorraine, there's two people here who are talking. I know they make sense to them, but I don't understand a word they're saying. Perhaps you would understand. So Whitney sent them over to see Lorraine, and then I was in Denver working at the time, and then as James, so it wasn't quite a connect yet, except for the Thomas Binyakya piece. And then as they were leaving, they said, Bole Baba Ki Jai. And Lorraine said, Bole Baba Ki Jai.
That's when it all began.
Yeah, that's the password. It's like, I know you. So that was the grace that opened the door just as they were trying to close it. And in terms of walking out the door, and then that conversation proceeded, and then from there was the 1984 when Shastriji and Muni Raj came, and
wait. Before Muni Raj came, I was talking with, I don't even remember who I had talked about with it about, but I had had a very vivid dream of Babaji standing on top of the mountain.
Excuse me. Here, I'll
Yes.
mute somebody. There we go. Okay, good, better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of an image of Baba standing on the mountain, sort of Christ-like with his hands out and looking down at us. And I think I told you that, Betsy and James.
Mhm.
And that was the story. Yes. And that's what the Samaj heard. And so it was Baba that set it all up. Okay.
James, my understanding is that you went to Harakan to see Babaji, meet him, and arrived in 1984, right around February 14th, when he left his body. Is that correct, James?
Oh, James.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's when I first met you all. Yeah, I think around February 14th. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to add that Ursula was James's wife at the time, and she was on that trip as well. She's no longer with us, but anyway, last night I was thinking, acknowledge Ursula, acknowledge Ursula, acknowledge Ursula. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
a very beautiful individual, very special. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you were there, and I remember you telling me, James, that you had that question in your heart about building an ashram in the west part of the United States, and it seemed like you followed that question.
It was the right choice.
It was the right choice. We're happy. But I want to point out that when Lorraine, said Bole Baba Ki Jai, and James did, the two of them, there were like, 80 people living in Crestone. So what are the chances of a population of 80 people having somebody already living there, two people who had met Babaji, and they'll tell their stories after
Right.
this first initial? What are the chances? Only Baba could have orchestrated that one.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the other piece of that story is that in those days, Lorraine was Hannah Strong's best friend. So she was the connection for, connecting with Hannah to access the possibility of getting some land.
Yeah.
And also in helping to set up the whole thing with the Colorado College, getting their conference rooms, which we made into a temple, and digging a big Havan Kund out on their land. So everything was like, but other people have more to say about that, because I know Lok had moved here and so.
Well, I remember digging the Havan Kund with James and Loknath, and Pujari was there. And we also planted a peace pole that day in that location. And
Which is still there.
And Pujari says, "Oh, we can't plant this unless we put some offerings in here." So he put some, I guess, Danish or something money in the hole, and so it's still growing, there on the Colorado college campus.
Well, Betsy, is there anything else?
And something that I was just recalling is that in 1984, when Muni Raj and Shastriji came, we went up to look at land, and where Hannah took them was actually the water and sanitation department plot of land that's just up Spanish Creek. And but Shastriji dipped his hand in the water and tasted it, and he goes, "This is the place." And of course, then we had to, or actually Crestone Creek. And then, later on, we were able to find the parcel that's where the ashram is now, which didn't have a road in those days. It was a little testier trip up the hill.
So Betsy, is there anything else you would like to say? Because I don't want to keep your students waiting for you.
I was going to tell a funny story, but then I forgot it. No, it was so magical, that period. I mean, all the periods are magical, but the the founding of the Mother Temple was truly, truly a magical time. Just meeting everybody and seeing things come together and being there for Muni Raj and Shastraji, and my big belly being blessed by Muni Raj and Shastraji, and now she's running a animal sanctuary basically, and is a psychologist, you know, working with disturbed kids and animals. That's her gig, and that's truly beautiful.
Jonathan చూడేట్లు గడ్డం పెంచుకుని
Wonderful.
What's that?
No, I think it was just somebody not muted, so that's wonderful to hear about Shanti and her work. Sounds beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel so incredibly blessed to be with you all. I miss you a lot, and sitting for, I love bhajans, sitting for bhajans, you know, and you know, I tried to come out for this last Samaj meeting, but it didn't work out. So this is next best.
Well, Betsy and James, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts, all of us, for the pioneering you did and the support you've given over the years for this ashram. And I do want to, James, did you want to say something more?
No, thanks.
Okay,
Just good to see you.
yeah. And
Been great touching base. I'm glad you called.
thank you. And just want to say Betsy plays a beautiful harmonium. She and I and Motu and Nagini, which I hope Nagini's here, traveled around the United States in her white van in 1984. We went around. She was the harmonium player. So to this day, I remember your beautiful harmonium. So thank you so much.
Well, I was blessed in Heracon to be sitting doing the 2-hour shift that turned into 2-hour shift at Christmas time, playing bhajans. And just when I was going to get up because my partner had to leave, Baba walks in and sat up, you know, and received people from the village. And I played so hard. I'm surprised I didn't break the harmonium. That was my blessing from Baba for music, but specifically bhajans. All right. Well, say Nagini, wherever you are, thank you for hooking me up again, getting everybody in touch, getting
Yeah.
Modi in touch, and it's great to
This is incredible.
be with you again. Yeah. Is she down there? Maybe that's the top of Nagini's head.
Tribe.
Hard to know where every,
Okay, well, I'm gonna sign off and go get ready for my class. And blessings to everybody. David and Lorraine,
Blessings.
great to see you. Loknath, blessings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Baba. Everybody, I don't know.
Bye bye.
Jonathan,
Yeah,
bye-bye.
Wonderful to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank
good to
you.
see you.
Thank
Yeah.
Yeah, for me too. James and Betsy or Shanti, it's such deep memories for me
Yeah.
to sit together with you in the van and you know your inspiration to, especially James, to make that connection there. We traveled to several places, but James already had in mind from, I believe Crestone is the place. So I have so many beautiful memories of traveling with you in a humble van, and we moved from place to place, not worried about nothing. And it's miraculous how this all came together. I also remember the moment that I was, after meeting Hannah Strong and we kind of finalized in Crestone, that they gave me all these papers that from the land and the plot that we were able to get. And I went with that material to Muniraji, and he immediately was so happy to see that this is the place, it's happening. I could feel when I came with these papers on his smile on his face that it looked like we found the place for the ashram. And that was in those days such a miracle to be able to establish another place for Babaji. I have such dear also with Paul Gessler, the big man in the van, how we moved around. So you're very dear in my heart. It's pity we can't meet more, but I'm very fortunate to have this meeting. But
Yes,
thank you so much.
you. Paul Gessler in the back of the van chanting burger, burger,
Burger.
burger, burger. All right. Bole Baba Ki Jai.
Baba Ki
Okay,
Jai.
Baba.
Jagambe
Ki
Mata
Jai.
Ki Jai. Jai
Jagambe
Vishwa Ki
Mata
Jai.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah
Om
Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya.
All
Om
right.
Namah Shivaya.
Another time, I hope.
Yeah.
I would like to drop another name from the early days, just to acknowledge that she was there and she played a pivotal role in the early days of the ashram, and that is Sheila Devi. Sheila Devi broke a lot of new ground, and she was really the person who, I'll say, elbowed her way in with Hannah Strong and was instrumental in the acquisition of that land. And she played a key role for about 5 years in putting things together.
Yeah. There's so
And
many-
Radhasham,
Radhasham, so many
Radhasham was there.
others that passed away. So I'm glad those of us that are still able are here today to remember them and share it with all the new people. So thank you. So maybe start with yourselves a little bit.
Who, us?
To Baba.
This is Kunturi. Start with yourself.
And
Baba gave me the name of Kunturi, and it means one who will receive great happiness. And Sheila was the one that Sheila Devi was the one that translated that for me, because I've heard a couple other descriptions, but she said this is what Baba said meant. And we went to see Babaji in 1979. And like so many people, we had read Autobiography of a Yogi. We didn't know each other at the time. And we both called out to Babaji, and through a whole series, we came together. And then one day I had a dream of Babaji, and he just went like this. And so I kind of acknowledged that, and I thought, well, how would I ever get to India to see him? And it seemed impossible, so I kind of let it go. And then not too long after that, he was in another dream, and he said, "You come." And that wasn't in a dream, that was more of a vision. He was standing there and said, "You come." And I said, "Baba, I would love to come to see you, but we don't have the money to go." And we had my children at the time, and David and I had just gotten together, and he was just starting a new business, and finances were very slim. And someone that went to see Babaji with Leonard Orr, what was his name?
Chuck Harris,
Chuck Harris.
also called Pana Singh by Babaji.
Yeah, Panasing. And he went to see Baba, and he felt that that he was Baba's work, and he got into a multi-level marketing thing, and he had come to me for a massage in Boulder, and he said he thought that I should join that so that money would come and I could go to India. And I said to get in was $100, and I was very suspicious of multi-levels anyway.
It was actually a Ponzi scheme. It was a pyramid ladder.
It was yeah. And so I just was, no. And in those days, I was charging $25 for a massage. And so wrote the check to me, and it was for $125. And I said, "What's this about?" And he said, "Now you have enough money to join this. So now you have to join the group." And within a month, the house that we were renting was being sold and we had to leave. And we had received $5,000 anonymously in the mail through this Ponzi scheme that went broke after that. And we went to see Babaji. And, and that's the way Baba works. And so do you want to say something about that? Quickly.
We met at the 1978 Rebirthing Jubilee, which was in Snowmass, Colorado. We were on staff, and we met Barbara Ann Tier in the National Black Theater. They were special guests there, and what we did is we sent the $100 to Barbara Ann Tier so that she could join the game. Actually, Chuck wrote Lorraine a check for $200. You know, you had to pay the first person there, and then you could anyway. And Barbara Ann happened to be working on Sesame Street at the time, and that letter went all the way through the Sesame Street staff that day. So it just had a life of its own, and consequently, we were
the beneficiaries.
Bole Baba Ki Jai, because we would not have been able to go otherwise. And then when we finally we had a choice to make. Could the house that we were renting, which was for sale, could we use that $5,000 as a down payment on the house, or go see Babaji? And it didn't take much time for us to go. We're going to India. So, and we had 3 kids at the time, and so we had to farm them back to their respective fathers and their family members, and we wound up taking our 15-year-old daughter to India with us, which was a huge adventure for her as well as for us. And and in fact, when we landed in New Delhi, we flew from we went Denver to Maui to Tokyo to Hong Kong to Delhi. And we got off the plane and we were just completely knackered. And Chris gets off the plane. She goes, let's just turn around right now. Let's just get back on the plane. All we have to do is get back on the plane. Let's just turn around. All we got to do is get back on the plane. And a Japanese gentleman came up and he said, pardon me, are there 3 people with rucksacks on that plane? It's a 747, man. Customs is right there. You better, go check that out. So we're still reeling from New Delhi at 3 a.m. and airport. And he comes back and he goes, pardon me. I have a room for 3 people and my friends are not on that plane. Will you come and stay with me? And we were so trusting of Babaji that we didn't have a plan for once we landed in India. So we didn't have a room, we didn't have a hotel, we didn't have anywhere to go. And he took us to the hotel, showed us around the next day, and then we started finding our way to get up to Haldwani and on to Harakan. And I just want to say one really beautiful memory is on the day that we were going up to Harakan, we had a porter, Rawadad was his name. But as we were walking up the river, and that was more of a creek at that time, we would hear voices to our right, children's voices, Bole Baba Ki Jai. And then we'd get an echo from the other side, children's voices, Bole Baba Ki Jai, Bole Baba Ki Jai. And every step of the way, Bole Baba Ki Jai, all the way up to Harakan. And so we were completely blessed all the way, and continues to this day.
I know many other people want to speak, so Ramoti, I don't know how much you know our stories, so I don't know if you want to say more.
There may be somebody here that has a quick question for you. And also David and Lorraine will be available later in the program. And
oh, good.
I have a question, please. How was it when you first met Babaji? How was it like when you first met him?
I just want to tell a little story before she, uncovers her heart for you, which is that at one point, we were already planning to go to India, and she's asthmatic, and her asthma got really, really bad in February. And I said to her, or maybe March, and I said, you know, if this doesn't get better, we're not going to be able to go. And so we went to bed. I had to fly out to Grand Junction the next morning for business. I got up about 5 o'clock in the morning to go catch a flight, and I noticed that she wasn't in bed. So I got up. She had completely cleaned the house, and she was just finishing a letter to Babaji, and she had just licked the envelope and sealed it as I got up.
Baba, I could hardly breathe, and I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital. And Baba walked in the room like robes flowing. I mean, he just came into the room, and very dramatically. He came over and he started pushing on my chest.
This is when we're in Golden, Colorado, mind you.
And he was pushing very hard on my chest, and I couldn't breathe. And I thought, he's trying to kill me, and maybe he wants to take me with him or something. And so I just said, okay. And I just released everything and gave myself to Baba. And he pushed again really hard, and I went, and he was gone. And I got up and I started cleaning the house. We're going to Huracan.
Yeah. So now tell them about your first encounter with Baba in person.
So my first encounter with Baba was, we had been told, Leonard Orr's group had been there before us, and there were still a few people there that we knew. And when they saw that we were there, they came over and welcomed us, and they said,
well, sort of. They said, we can't talk to you. You're impure.
Yeah, we can't talk. Yeah, that's a good part of it. We can't talk to you. You're impure. And Baba doesn't speak English. And then they left. And so I was starting up the stairs, and Baba was coming down.
No. Raudad came over, and he goes, Baba, see you now, because he was at the Mother Temple.
Okay.
And so we went over to the Mother Temple, and
okay.
Yeah, and Baba asked if we were with Makan Singh, Leonard Orr, and we said no, and he said good, and so he remembered Lorraine from that letter. So it was a very totally warm and welcoming experience.
And he was talking to us
in English.
And we hadn't bathed, and he was just hanging out with us. So
yeah, for a few minutes.
Yeah, for a few minutes.
Yeah, a minute with Babaji is more like a couple of days somewhere else.
And then he took my hair, I had very long hair. And he took my hair and he said, very beautiful hair. You mundan. And I didn't know. I didn't know what that meant. So I said, yes. And later Baba put us under what was his name?
There was a guy named Christian von Trapp, a German gentleman who Babaji called him Black Boy, made him walk around with a plastic bag on his head and other things. And he was his shadow, shall we say. And so he told Black Boy that
to take care of
us and do mundan.
And so I went to Black Boy, and I said, Baba said that I should mundan. What is mundan? And he said, shave your head. And I was kind of taken aback by that. And before we got to Huracan, we were wandering around Delhi on the first day, and we were at a park, and a sadhu came through, with the turban and all the robes and the long beard, and he walked up to me. David had stepped away for a moment, and he walked up to me and he said, I would like to read your palm. And I thought, it's one of those people just looking for money. But then I was very curious about what he might say. So I held my hand out. And he said no money or no bakshish. And so I held my hand out, and he told me some personal things. And then he said, whatever you do, never cut your hair or your nails on Tuesday or you will die. So So I'm talking to Black Boy about the moon dawn, and he said, Baba says Tuesday. And I said, "Oh, Wednesday.
Was it
Different days, good. No, Baba says Tuesday.
He always has a reason, he says.
So yeah, he always has a reason. So I was really kind of scared, and I thought, well, there it is again. I'm supposed to die, but to die in Heracon would be wonderful. And a long time ago, I'd had a near-death experience and died in the hospital, and went to the light. And so I don't really have any fear about death. And so I'm okay whenever it's time for me to go, that's okay. So if Baba wants me to die on Tuesday, that's okay. So we got our heads shaved, and then I don't know how much time we have, but would you tell what happened after that? Because it's a miracle.
Her hair was parted down the middle, and she had this dark stripe on her head. So after we did Mundan, we walked over to Baba, who was at the Mother Temple, and he was carrying his danda, and he takes it back like he's going to take a big swing.
It's a big
goes,
stick if you don't.
And he stops just before her head, and then he just rubbed it on her brown spot.
And he goes.
So anyway, that day went well. The following day, long story short,
Yeah, quickly.
we weren't working that morning, and then we were going to work that afternoon. He gave everybody the morning off, and so as we were walking out to go to the tea house, he went up to Lorraine and he says, "You go." And so I went and got our shoes. I came back. She's crying already, and she says, "We've been kicked out of the ashram, And I said, "Well, what for? We'll go, but what for?" So I said, "Well, I'm not going until I know what we're kicked out for." So
He's very stubborn.
Anyway, Babaji was up in Gora Devi's room, which was, up one flight of stairs. And he's sitting in this large easy chair doing mail call. Mail call consists of Gora putting an envelope down by him, and he would pass his hand over it, say yes or no. And if it was a yes, he would have her read it to him. And if it was a no, they just throw it in the trash. So what we know is that back in the February before that, Lorraine's letter got her yes. So anyway, we're standing there, and Sheila's to my right on the door. Lorraine was on my left, and Sheila says, "Beg forgiveness." And I said, "I'm not begging forgiveness. I don't do anything." And she goes, "Beg forgiveness." And I said, I don't know what I did. And she says, "I told you to beg forgiveness." And suddenly our knees buckled, and we were flat on our faces at Baba's feet. Going, "Oh, please, Baba, we're just flaky Americans. We don't know what's going on." So he goes, "Okay." And in that moment, we were forgiven for everything. And it was a huge karmic cleanse job. And those of you who've been to Baba, it's like only with Baba can those kinds of things happen. So he said that we needed to go to our room and think about what we'd done. And so as soon as he said that, then he looked at me and he says, "You eat." So I told Lorraine, "Oh, you." He says, "Now we eat." And she goes, "Well, he can't tell me not to eat and then tell me to eat." And then she started crying, and Baba comes around and he put his arm around her and he walks her to the front of the line and everything, and everybody's looking and they're waiting. And I
was embarrassed.
And so there was this the plates were bow leaves in those times. So they just pile stuff on. She goes, "When I'm angry, I can't eat." Baba piles it on. So we started working down in the river, building the dikes for the spring floods. And our daughter Chris had befriended a woman from Boulder who threw down her last rock and said, I'm not doing this anymore. And then Chris threw down her rock. Then she says, Mom, throw down your rock. Don't do this anymore. So she threw down her rock. They go up the stairs. Couldn't have been 5 minutes later. Chris comes running down the stairs. David, mom's really sick. So I went upstairs and she's throwing up profusely. And I actually started shuttling buckets between the ashram and down to the river. And anyway, that afternoon for the afternoon bhajans, I was sitting there and she's still dry heaving at this point. So I went up to Baba when there was an opportunity for darshan, and I pranamed. I said, Baba, Kunturi is really sick. And he was painting a picture. He used to do those beautiful watercolors. And he looks at me so beatifically and he goes, this very good. And I said, no, really, she's really sick. And he goes down and this woman stands up and says, I have the medicine he made for her yesterday. So she and I go back to the room. I get a glass of water, 3 drops of this red liquid. She's in there retching. She's been dry heaving for probably 3 hours. And I said, Baba, say you drink this, gulp it all down. She drinks it all down, stops, all the heaving stops and everything else. So then I went to RT that evening. And when I came back, she had just as I walked in the door, erped up this black necrotic thing that.
It looked like liver, like cow's liver, and it was big. I thought I was going to choke to death trying to get it out. And then there it was plopped into the bucket. And it looked, at the time, what I said is it looks evil. And I didn't find out until later, it was anger I had carried all my life. And there it was out. So, and then I felt fine.
Not exactly. You were exhausted for 3 days.
Well, okay. but then was when I went down to bathe, right?
But what we didn't know then, and we know now, is he ordered that out of her, not us out of the ashram.
Ah.
You go, 2 words, ding.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was a profound cleansing and purge. And
I had quite a bit of trauma when I was young, and that had been growing and growing, and he took it away. And so I went down to the river. I was told to go down to the river to bathe, and I went down to the river, and I walked in, and I was up to about my knees in the Ganges, and I suddenly realized, and I'd been bathing there for a couple of days, but I realized in that moment that the river was truly, absolutely sacred. And the ashram was sacred, and the whole area was sacred. And that if I couldn't let go of the last vestiges of my anger and fear, that I would pollute the river.
Mm.
And so I stood there for quite a while, and I was kind of bonging back and forth about just going under the water and letting the rest of it go.
by the way, Babaji was at the Mother Temple just above us, sitting, watching.
And I just stood there, and part of me just kept saying, I have a right to be angry. I have a right to be angry. And that kept me from going under. And then all of a sudden I looked up at Baba. He didn't do anything. He was just watching me. And once again, my knees buckled, and I went under in the Ganges. And when I came up, I was like, it was
Free at last.
free at last. And I got dressed as quickly as I could, and I ran up to the temple where Baba was sitting, and I pranamed most devotedly and most surrendering that I possibly could. And I asked him, how could I learn about all of this? Because I thought that I probably would stay in the ashram the rest of my life. And he looked at me like he didn't understand what I was saying. And I said, how can I learn about all of this? And he said, go home and be happy. And I didn't quite catch that. And I said, but what about all of this? I should be doing this. And he said, he put his arms and he goes like this. This, some people need form to reach the formless. You go to the formless. And then he said it was time for us to go home.
Yeah.
And the point of this story is that besides all of the drama and the setup of the sadhu, and the sadhu may have been Baba, I don't know, who said you're going to die, was that if I'm not being happy, I know I'm not following Baba's orders.
Mm.
So I can't get into anger or depression or holding on to things or anything like that. My orders are to be happy. And I think that's all Baba wants for all of us.
I would just like to add that Babaji, when he said, go home and be happy, and he said, and maybe
you will tell some other people about me.
Mm.
And here we are.
Wow. So nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For those who could hear, we've been telling people now for over 40 years. That's because we are so blessed by Babaji.
Ramaloti, later, if there's time, I would love to have David just tell a story about how when Baba took David
or
flying.
another satsang.
Oh, please, yes.
Thank you, David and Lorraine. I love hearing your stories. I could listen all day. I just want to check in with our Uncle D over here. Yeah, this old guy, he's like 81 years old. And they're muted. And I know he also has to get to work. He still works for a living because Annie spends a lot of money on clothes and makeup.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you guys. Hey, Annie's going to tell some stories about how we got involved with the ashram Crestone, but I unfortunately did not have encounters with Babaji like most of you did, but I did have some good encounters with Muniraj, and I enjoyed every one of them. I want to tell you two stories. One takes place in Sheila Devi, and the second takes place in Crestone. Usually when I travel abroad, I try to learn the local language. So before Annie and I went to India, I spent about a month studying Hindi so I could be semi-conversant with the people that I met. So we get to Chilianola, and I'd really gotten involved in going to RT and the fire ceremonies, and found out that at the end of Navaratri, it was possible for us to get married again in an Indian ceremony. The kicker was you had to get permission from Muniraj. So I spent 4 or 5 days developing my little spiel that I was going to give to Muniraj, and I thought I had it down pat. So at the appointed time, I went to Muniraj's house and was ushered into his reception area, and Muniraj was there, and Sastraji, Arvind, I think Pujari was there, Gaur Devi. Anyway, I made my pranam and launched into my spiel requesting permission for Anne and me to get married after Navaratri. And about halfway through, everybody in the room started to smile. And I said, well, I must really be impressing them with my Hindi. And by the time I finished, everybody was in an uproar. And Muniraj was laughing. He said, yes, yes, go, go, go. So I left. And later that afternoon, I saw Gaur Devi. And I said, Gora, what was so funny? And she said, you said, told everybody you were pregnant. And then the second story took place at Navaratri and Crestone when Muniraj and Devaji and Pujari and Arvind came. And Ramloti had conscripted me to be Muniraj's chauffeur, along with Pujari and Devaji and Arvind. And so she decorated my big red Ford pickup truck. The dashboard was full of flowers and I had malas and everything. And she said, do not play any country music on the radio. Well, that's all I play on my radio. So for several days, I was chauffeuring Muniraj et al. Back and forth from the condo to the ashram. And the first night, Muniraj says, let's drive around. After Arti, it was dark. And so we would see elk and deer. Well, they wanted to do a tour of the Baka every night after Arti to look for deer and elk. And I had my music turned down low, and Muniraj says, turn the music up. So I turned it up, and then every night they wanted to listen to country music. And at the end of the week, I had them singing Home on the Range. Anyway, Ann will tell you, I've got to go. I got work to do. Good to see everybody. Bole Baba Ki.
Jay.
Yay.
We love you, Uncle D.
Yeah, we love you too.
Be happy.
Hey, you guys asked Ramloti about putting gummy bears in my Scotch bottle.
He had to get some. He's not going to tell all the secrets, Annie. Well, Annie, you're here for a while, right? You're okay to stay? Annie, are you okay to stay for a while? We can go back to sort of a sequence.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah. Go on.
Great.
Absolutely. You can go on.
Okay, so how about Lok, and if you want to share something about coming to Crestone, and then Gayatri, I'm not seeing Gayatri yet.
Yeah, I'm here. I thought it was at 1 my time, so sorry for being late.
Yeah, they're always changing. So, but go ahead, Lok.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. And Ramlota, back from a big heart adventure. So,
Yes.
yeah, especially my brother. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Oh, it's Luke.
Yeah. So, yeah, what a dance this story is of all these extraordinary kind of offers of Babaji's travel agency and connecting people. So what I kind of a bit of the piece that I add is Toby Clark, who was kind of an early Samaj president and organizer, and so he was a kind of a big switching board in California for people coming through. And when James and Betsy talked to him about about Crestone, it happened that in December of '84, Kamalu and I were coming from England and spending Christmas in the U.S. And James and Betsy showed up at Toby and Kathleen's house and talked about Thomas and Thomas's sense of going to Crestone, and talking about the land that the San Luis Valley, where Crestone is a unique geological presence in the whole of the U.S. And so that was an amplification of its sacredness for Thomas. And James was so excited about this place. So December, I think it was, we'd set out like on the 27th or 28th, started driving to Colorado and in this white Toyota van of Betsy's, and got to Crestone just before New Year's Eve on the 31st. And Hannah and Maurice were having a big party with people from the Aspen Institute, which in the US is a very prestigious think tank. The CEO of then Richfield Oil was there. And so we kind of drag in these people, these Babaji devotees, excited about an ashram. And really from the very beginning, that the whole Crestone community kind of lit up in hospitality for us. I think that David and Lorraine's presence there earlier was certainly an influence, but there was also something very, very warm about the whole community, beginning from that very first contact that I had anyway, that was really remarkable. So another voice in that was Whitney Strong, who helped us. We stayed, the four of us stayed in townhouse number 9, which Whitney set up for us. And then already that night, I mean, Betsy talked so, very eloquently about how remarkable it felt to us. And as has been said so many times later, all four of us got up in the morning and said, wow, remarking about the deep, loud silence of Crestone in the mountains. And so really it was a remarkable kind of falling in love immediately for me, in a sense that at least those who I was with were feeling the same thing. And then the other pieces, Sandra Ray had a big part in saying yes to the celebration, the first celebration in '85, the kind of our first World Peace celebration there. We planted the peace pole and dug the Dooney. Before that, I had we had all kind of spread around, James and Betsy, back to California. Kamalu and I left to go to Hawaii, then came back. And I came back to Crestone by myself. Again, Whitney Strong got me into townhouse number 9. And I was sitting there one night, and Tom Richardson, who Lorraine and David will remember, came and knocked on the door and said, so I understand you're looking for a place to stay, and I've got a house. So Tom had a house right in Crestone, about a block from the then grocery store. And so we immediately had a place to stay. And when Sheila came back later that year, we had a room for her. And so it was just it was an extraordinary dance to be a part of. And in stories, it's like, yeah, what a blessing that we all were touched by. I guess another person I would name is, I don't know if people remember Jeannie Carr. Jeannie was a huge help in organizing both the 85 and 86 peace celebration, and did all this kind of organizing stuff behind the scenes, scrapping around. And another name I would mention is Michael Burton, who was the architect for the Carmelite, both the chapel and the community house. And David, you may have a better memory of this, but I think it was you and I and Michael. Michael took us out to the property where the ashram is now, and it was he who was most passionate about that property. Sheila and I had looked up on the hill right above Crestone. There was a lot of space up there, but Michael knew about this piece of property, and I think it was he. Anyway, whatever the case, just another, there were so many ingredients of the number of people in that community who said yes to us. Even what is now the Mountain Zen Center was in Lindisfarne. And when they first finished that dome, the inside was rubble and you really couldn't use it. But for that first peace celebration, we cleaned it out, and the Babaji community was the first community to actually use that dome.
Really?
On the, yeah, on the, for the first peace celebration. And I remember Shastriji standing up, and this is people from all these traditions, and Shastriji said, everybody has to do Om Namah Shivaya. And it was like this very, very clear sense that that for Shastriji, these mountains were full of Om Namah Shivaya. And I think, yeah, beyond that, Muni Raj was incredibly generous in supporting this whole thing. And she, as David said, when Sheila came back, she and Hannah had hit it off immediately in the summer of '85. And when Sheila came back, I think in maybe September, October, Hannah and Sheila were great buddies, and were yeah, that was quite a remarkable kind of relationship. And Maurice also was very taken by Sheila's presence, and also very, very gracious in that whole process, and very it was really what is now Colorado College, and was then this whole campus built really at just insistence by the Aspen Institute, because Maurice was such a prominent figure. We had free run over that whole piece of property. So it was, the blessing to build the Dooney there, put the peace pole there. We used that Dooney for fires every morning, and yeah, so just a very extraordinary kind of generosity and blessing of Baba's that touched all these people. Kurt and Bernadette, these staunch members of the Carmelite community, who were running the only store in town, hired Kamalu to give us a bit of money. And so, yeah, it was a very really extraordinary dance to be a part of. And yeah, very thankful, Ramloti, for you coming in '86 and saying, I want to stay now. It was wonderful. I was on my way out. Kamala was on her way out. And James and Betsy had already kind of figured out that they didn't need or want to be a part of it. Betsy was really looking to teach. Yeah, those are the parts of the story that strike me. I remember Sarah Dumbe coming to Crestone, falling in love and buying a beautiful piece of property. And then her life path carried her away. Yeah.
Thanks, Love, for all that. It's always interesting to hear stories from different people because you had, different experiences there. So.
Yeah, everybody, different memories, and we all had different parts of this. Just like being with Baba, everybody had a different experience. We could be sitting in the same place at the same time, and everybody had a different experience. So it's the same thing with creating these ashrams. I think, it was a dance, and yeah, to this day, I think there's so much of a calling for us as a larger Babaji community to be, kind of a part of the big question in Crestone, like, what are the next steps? How can we participate now in a world that is so hurting and traumatized? So, yeah.
Thanks, Lok.
Cool.
And I can just say that, like Lok said, in '86, I moved there with Radhesham and Sheila Devi. So the three of us undertook those first and finally got this smaller part of the temple built where Mother resides. Mother arrived in '89. And I could tell many stories as well about, Babaji making it very clear the different things I was supposed to do here. But I think for the sake of time, we'll save those stories another day or toward the end. But I also want to let JD, who is very kindly up so late at night. Where are you, JD? I hope you haven't fallen asleep on us.
I think he just said goodbye 2 minutes ago. Yeah, and your voice is a little bit low, Ramloti.
Okay, thanks, Pooh.
I saw him waving.
Okay. Well, anyways, it was kind that JD got on. He moved here in the last, moved here, I think, in 1989 and helped with the ashram and also building of that. And I'm sure he would have many wonderful stories, but he's in Thailand and it's about midnight there, I think now. So it was great he got on, and I should have been more conscious to put him on a bit earlier before he fell asleep. But yeah, so we moved on and built the small part of the temple, and I left, and actually JD and I ended up becoming a couple, and the two of us left after we installed Mother in '89. We took a break, so we were running the place from '86 to '90 with Radhesham, and Sheila then passed away as well. And so in 1990, I'm going to hand it over to Gayatri.
Oh,
Gayatri and Ramlota and Rambarosi. I think you're the team.
okay. Well, the person I want to first recognize the most for all his service to the ashram is my friend and brother Kailash, who is no longer with us. I couldn't have been there without him. He helped me in so many ways, and was a huge pillar for the ashram. And I remember going in the beginning to look at we were looking at the hotel that they wanted to offer us as the ashram. So it was Ramloti and Radhesham and me, and that's the three of us. And we rented a car, and we stayed at the townhouse. And I remember when we woke up, there was like 3 feet of snow. So it was winter. And we looked at this hotel and we were like, the heating alone, I mean, there was nothing sustainable about it. So we decided to refuse that and instead request land. And so we had to drive to Colorado Springs to an office where we needed to do this interview for land. And we got a speeding ticket on the way. And every time I pass that spot, I'm looking for the cop again because anyway, that was an adventure. And I thought, oh my God, because I'd been looking for already 6 months in Marin, or a year for a place in Marin, but everything was expensive. We looked in Fairfax, we looked in all over that area of California. And anyway, so when we went, but we did, I just remember thinking, oh, this is the middle of nowhere. So, and with this snow and everything, it was just like, what are we getting ourselves into? And so that's I remember in the beginning, and I was president of the Samaj for like, I don't know, I'd love to look at the news. It felt like forever, but it was at least 10 years. So I was in charge of organizing the tours and getting the tickets and doing all that kind of stuff for Muni Raj and Shastriji to come and visit. And that whole peace thing, I remember, I didn't participate much because my karma yoga was ironing dhotis, and they're like, I don't know how many meters long. And so I ironing everybody's dhotis. I didn't get to participate in a lot of the fun stuff. I was washing dishes and ironing dhotis the whole time. But I remember Dickens, and my little Bichon Frise at the time, and Muni Raj had him in his arm at the fire ceremony. And oh gosh, I just remember so many blessings of Dickens while I was coming and going there. But one story that really made me, what that came up when Luke was talking about that weekend was in that dome at Lindisfarne, we smoked this peace pipe with Thomas Banyaka, a chanupa. And Muni Raj and Shastriji smoked the chanupa with Thomas Banyaka. And one of my other Hediakandi brothers from Europe was there, Tukaram.
Okay.
And he was crying. And so afterwards, I said, what, oh, that was so beautiful. And I saw you crying. And he goes, oh, you have no idea. He said, well, I saw Thomas Banyaka speak in Europe, in I think Zurich, and he made a prayer at the end of his talk. And I thought it was the most beautiful prayer. And so I went and asked him if I could write down the prayer that he said. And so he had it folded in his wallet when he went to Babaji. And he was like, when he went to Babaji, he thought, I want to give him the most special thing I own or I have. And he decided that the most special thing he had was this prayer from Thomas Banyaka. So he took out the paper and he gave it to Babaji. And he said, when he gave it to Babaji, he made a prayer to bring the Native American Indian and the East Indian together. And so here he was witnessing the same man, Thomas Banyaka, smoking a chanupa with Muni Raj and Shastriji. And he was just like, it was so beautiful, so beautiful. That Babaji fulfilled that for him. And not only that, Thomas Banyaka chose the site for the temple and was also a big part. My mom was a big part. I want to recognize her because she gave a sizable donation towards the temple. And Fred and Carol, who are also no longer with us, Kailash's parents, were living with us for a while. I lived in 3 ashram houses before the Urship was built. And we couldn't have built that Urship without the help of Rambarosi and Ananda. And Danesh and Narayani all came later, but Rambarosi and Ananda, I mean, they were living in Italy. I knew they were great karma yogis, and I invited them to come to the ashram for a year to help because Kailash and I were alone. And to build an Urship alone, we went to Taos, we took the course with Michael Reynolds, and we came back. I have to say there was a lot of stumbling blocks because Fred, Kailash's dad, Fred, was not used to, first of all, taking any orders from a woman. And I was president also of the ashram at the time for like three or 4 years. And we had decided on the Urship, but I was always trying to be totally democratic. So what we're building, where we're putting it, how we're doing it. I pulled the whole Samaj body in America because I really was trying to get their involvement, but it was like knocking on wood. I mean, so few people came to help. Raising money was difficult. I mean, I was basically an administrator, a shopkeeper, and a fundraiser for the whole time. And I really struggled with that. I was like, this isn't my spiritual path, all this, administration shit. I fought it tooth and nail inside me. But Muni Raj was like, you have to do it, you have to do it, you have to do it. So I was in conflict a lot. But the worst time was when I
tell stories. They usually will be telling much of the same stories.
Who is this?
You're still interested. What?
Oh, it's not a question. Okay. So Fred, I come back, we've decided on the, and we're going to have this meeting to decide where the Earthship is going. And Fred had gotten a bulldozer and dug this humongous hole to put the Earthship. Like he was like, I'm deciding where it goes. I don't want to wait. We need to move it. And I was just, it was so hard for me to like, I was like, but Fred, we're a family, and this is a family ashram. All the Babaji devotees there, this is everybody's ashram, and you can't just decide things like that. You know, I'm trying to get people involved. And he was like, you're just wasting time. And the same thing when we put in the water system, I have to recognize Ramlota because he was in the water more than any of us. And it was cold. We had to keep switching because we were getting headaches from the cold to do this filter system for the water. Mom, I can't talk now. And so Fred decides, you know, okay, so as Thomas Banyaka had showed us, you talk to the land. You ask permission, you offer tobacco, you make a prayer to the land is a living being. Well, Fred wanted none of that. He just thought that was woo-woo. So he took a bulldozer and literally just cut into the earth from the up on where the water filter is, all the way down to where he wanted that Earthship. And he ran into boulders every step of the way. And it took like twice as long to do, because he didn't want to talk to the land. And I was just like, I mean, so it was a real challenge for me to work with him. I have to say, he was my, what do you call it? My father's stuff. And I was his, I don't know what stuff, his mother. I'm sure it was his mother, but we butted heads a lot. And I was together with Ramlota, we were in a relationship, and I wanted to live in Italy. I was like, I want to be in Italy. There's already an ashram, all my brothers and sisters around, you know, and he wanted to be in Colorado. And it was a real push and pull for us, you know. You remember, I see the smile. It was really like, you know, and I was like, no, I want to be in Italy. And he was like, no, we need to be there. And well, Rambadosi and Ananda just, you know, these two people, they lived in the yurt. Oh, let's recognize, what was his name? Who did the yurt? Who built the yurt? What was his name? He was Linda's boyfriend for a while. From Russia. Oh yeah. Yes, he built the yurt in a very economical way, and Rambadosi and Ananda were living in there, and we didn't have showers or anything, and they didn't want to do the trek from the ashram house up to the ashram every day, so they went in that river every morning. Oh my gosh, that freezing cold river! I mean, you guys, hats off. Talk about some beautiful karma yoga. You were amazing, and thank you, Ramlota and Rambadosi, and I want to remember Ananda. He's also not in a body now, but he was just so great, and it was fun. It was so fun having you there, and not just Kailash and I alone. So I really thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Gayatri.
I have also a nice story about those times.
Yeah, go ahead, Ramlota.
In those months that I was there, I was lucky enough to be in Crestone in Baca. I was also lucky enough also to do a lot of good karma yoga with my brothers and sisters, but also I served the temple. I was so lucky to do puja to Visveshwari Ma that I see there behind you, Ramloti. That murti is so beautiful. No, I am not very much in puja. It's not my way. But I have to say that it was a really beautiful time. So one evening, I was mostly alone there because we were very few. I was doing this service alone. And that time there was a girl, luckily, who was, I forgot her name, but she was playing harmonium. So here we go, we start, and we are alone. I offered the light, the water, the air, everything. And then when I turn around to finish the arti, I see that 4 people had arrived. And especially one man, looking about 35, 40 with a beard, and he was crying profusely. So I said, okay, and sat, we sang all Arti. And then at the end of the Arti, he came up to me and he said, you know, it's such an incredible story. I have to tell you, I'm so moved. And he said, when I was 15, 16-year-old with my friends, we went camping around here in the in the Sangre de Cristo mountains. And one night they put up the tent exactly where the temple is now.
Oh, nice.
And they had with them the book Autobiography of a Yogi.
No.
And every night while they were sitting there, they made a fire and they were reading some chapters of the books all together. And they were there that night and they read the chapter about Babaji. And while they were reading it, they said a huge light came out of the mountain and put like a shine on the camp. And it lasted for 5-6 minutes and they were all astonished. What is that? What is that? And then he said, and I was here now traveling with my family, with his brother or others. And he remembered that he had taken that trip, that camp. So he said, let me see if I can find again the spot where I put the tent and we had this light experience. And he came up and he found the Babaji's ashram there. So he was totally shocked and in awe and crying so hard. And he said, you know, after that experience, I was attracted to Babaji, to all this, but I totally lost my way. And I got a marriage and it was bad. And he had terrible years of pain and suffering. And he said, well, no, you are here now, no? And it is an incredible story. And I'm so grateful also, Gayatri, I'm so grateful to you that through you, I was able to come to Baka, you know, and to see that beauty. Because I have to say, when I was there, I always had the feeling that the temple is those mountains is the temple. Those creeks, the woods, and the in front, and all the nature there is so sacred. So I was always feeling that our little temples, I say, I hope we do not disturb too much.
It's like living in Heracon in the West.
Yes, it's the same intensity.
It really is. You've got the mountains. And I fought it so hard for so long. And now I've lived there, how long? 25 years or so, you know, because I love the nature. It's so, so beautiful. But I also want to remember Mark Mathiak, because I was living after I lived in Radhashyam's house, we moved, then we moved again. We lived in a house with Rita and Mark and myself, and that house on Moonlight Way. And yeah, Rita also. My gosh, so many people have put their love and you know, devotion into building, maintaining everything. I mean, it really has been a group effort. And has Rambarosi spoken? Because I really want to hear from her. Has she spoken yet?
Rambarosi, you're going to have to figure out how to unmute though. You're getting professional at this.
Yeah, it's a little button at the bottom left corner.
Now?
Yeah.
You hear now? Okay. I have to excuse me a little bit because I don't feel so well today. I have backache and a lot of stuff. So it's just like, okay. I want to thank you, Gayatri, because I thought of this last days, and I must say you were so grateful, you were so generous, you were so without you it would not have been possible to go to America, to have all these wonderful experiences with you all together. It was really a great time, and I thank you really very, very much from the deep of my heart. It was so beautiful. And I mean, we were 2 times also in there. So it was first with you and Ramlota, and after, and it was Ramloti. So it's exceptional times, really exceptional times. I don't know what I can, I mean, I could tell a lot of stories, but it's nothing in my mind now in this moment, which is really exceptional or great in a special way, let's say like this. It was just the time which I loved so much, and I was so happy in this way, and the surrounding, the nature, you all together, this experience, it was also very enthusiastic all the time. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I really don't really remember what I could tell you now. Maybe one thing, but this wasn't the second time. I think when I was with Ramloti, I don't really remember what happened, but Ramloti was in the first time, she wasn't in the ashram, and she was really not very lucky to, had no good relationship with the ashram because she was in conflict, I think with Muniraj. I don't know what happened there. And I know that one time I went to her because I felt she was really an ashramite. She had to go back to the ashram somehow, and I felt that, and so I went. I don't really remember good how it worked, but I went to her and we talked together, and I was very eager to convince her that she had to do this step to connect again with the ashram somehow. And when it then happened after a while, and she came back, for me it was like, wow, it was so beautiful, and I felt that this was really her way. And you see now, I mean, how many years it's now, 30 years, 40 years that you are in the ashram, and you do so much good on the ashram. It's beautiful, and thank you very much. This was great thing, and I feel somehow that I had a little part to put you in this ashram again, and to reconnect it with this work, and so this makes me very happy.
One thing I
Every time I think of us putting in the glass on the Earthship, remember when we were installing the windows? Yeah. Oh my God. And those little bugs that kept going in our mouth, you had to like wear a bee costume to work in the summer. It was, oh my God.
Yeah. What I very remember is all these walls we had to construct. This was really a Karma Yoga Madonna.
Oh my God, running tires, that was the worst.
It was really, every day this, how you say, these cans or what, and then the sand and this
pounding the tires, yes.
Yeah. Which you did all the time. You did all the time. Yeah. Oh. And anyway, it was so beautiful in the end. It was a wonderful thing to have this Earthship there, but it was really quite a lot of work.
I used to go over next door to the Lindisfarne, and then it became Zen Center. And you know, they were given, the Zen Center was given the property by the Lindisfarne people. And here they were, and they just walked in, and they had everything, this beautiful ashram, and with even the garden giving produce and stuff. And I said, man, you guys are have really good karma. And they're like, yeah, you guys are taking a really long time. And I was like, yeah, because we're doing it all with our own hands. We're not hiring people. We're doing. I mean, gosh, I can't wait till we have a head of cabbage or whatever. But I just thought, lucky them to. And I was like, but yeah, Shiva is a tough Lord, and so we got,
really
no
tough.
wonder your back hurts, girlfriend. No wonder your back hurts.
It might be at the back. I mean, I'm old now. This is the back, an old back, so it just hurts. I mean, I don't think I'm the only one who have these problems anyway. But I want anyway to remember. Also, this I had the last days in my mind. Danesh and Narayan, because we were together there. We lived in the ashram together. We had a beautiful time. But the story, which ended so terribly, I never could really overcome it somehow because it was so incredible, you know. But I remember so beautiful times with them.
I had a dream I want to tell you, Rinpoche, right after when the next time I went to Huracan. I had a dream with the two of them, and they said they were fine and they were happy, and that had to happen for their karma. So, and I don't know if you remember the times when they fought in the ashram.
Yeah. I remember.
And one time she took a big kitchen knife and handed it to him and said, "Do it now, get it over with, come on." And then it really had to happen. It was in their destiny. And, you know, but I remember, you know, we were always having a little bit of we weren't making the biggest spiritual impression in the community with the Shiva like things that were happening. And I would always try to explain to people, we worship Shiva. That's like inviting destruction, you know. That's the only way I can explain it, you know. And but yeah, our roots had some real strong experiences, and Sheila dying too, and wow. Anyway,
I want to.
They're happy. They're happy. They're together. They're happy. I know that.
Okay, I hope this is true because it was really a heavy story. But anyway, I remember them in the ashram where they were with us, and I remember, for example, Danesh. He was good cooking also, and he had all these recepts from his where from Iraq or from Iran. I don't know. From where did he come?
Iran.
Iran.
Yes.
And he talked also about his how his mother cooked, and he just give us some hints how to do that it could be better, because I didn't cook so good. I was never a good cook, so. And
Rosie, I also want
to improve my cooking a little bit. Was really, he was very alert and attentive also on the things. So, and yeah, anyway, it was a part of this experience we had there in Baca, in Crestone. I always say Baca. I don't know why I always say this is Baca, but it is Crestone. Okay.
People don't. Yeah, Baca is the town place. Yeah, but it's Crestone.
Yeah.
Nanda,
there was also one nice story when we started. Huh? Tamlati?
I was just want to remember Ananda for a moment too when you're done.
I don't understand you very good today.
Is it too?
Can you talk a little bit louder?
Yeah, I tell the story, and then I want to remember Ananda.
Okay. No, it's a very small story about when we tried to find a house where we could stay, and we had to change, I think, 2 or 3 times to have housing for the ashram people. And I remember one time we were together with you, we were 4 people, Ananda, me, you, and I think also Ramlota, I don't remember exactly. And we were, and we didn't know how to decide which house we should take. And you, Gayatri, you told, let's have a meditation on that together. And I have no idea of meditation. I mean, I'm not a meditator in this time. And okay, I said, oh, let's meditate. Okay, we meditate, but I didn't believe in this stuff of meditating when there's some outcome. And then it came out, it was so incredible. You all had the same connection and the same decision. In the end, it was quite clear what house we had to take. I don't
C'era
remember anywhere, but it was like, I was like, oh, Madonna, funziona. It was like, you know, I learned about meditation. So that is really functioning, and that is really a good thing to do when you have the decision to make. It was really nice. It was a very nice story. Yeah. Okay. Now you, Ramloti.
I just remember Ananda, who was there with you and doing all the karma yoga and doing the pujari work. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh?
And Ananda is Italian and
Yeah.
raised Catholic. And he would tell me, oh, Ramloti is like being with the Madonna. So he would always call our mother the Madonna. And it was so, that faith and love was so beautiful.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
the tour that Rombrosi and I took around the country doing chanting.
Oh, these were beautiful.
Toward the end of their stay. But I want to tell one story about Bill Thompson, who was the founder of Lindisfarne, who guided.
Uh-huh.
So before the Zen Center was there, it was the Lindisfarne, and they're part of John the Divine, or St. John the Divine, a big cathedral in New York, which is quite famous. And the head of that was Bill Thompson, or William Thompson. And so his wife was friends with Malti, one of the first German devotees. And Malti was telling his wife about Babaji and that she should go. And she told, it's my story now, but I'm sure it's not totally correct, but that she should go. And so she's speaking to Bill Thompson, the head of Lindisfarne. This is way before, this is like in the 70s, before we're even there, right? And Bill Thompson goes, you know, he didn't have anything to do with it. But then he came over across the creek. So the Zen Center, Lindisfarne, is across the creek from us, across the creek, and came here. And this reminded me of your story, Ramlota, is that apparently he stayed here for some, you know, maybe came in the evening and lit a fire on this property right around where the temple is now also, and was just sitting around the fire. And apparently Babaji appeared to him there, as big as could be, and the fire went up and everything. And so this is also another omen of where this beautiful temple is. So this is the story I heard.
Baba was living there much before we arrived.
Yes, yes, yes. We've had many. So let's move on.
Let me just add another piece to that. It was JD who saw Baba in the sand dunes.
Right.
So another bit of a small piece of the puzzle. And JD says that, I remember Babaji came walking with a in the sand dunes, and so that was JD's first hit of Baba in that same area. Sand dunes right down from the ashram.
A lot of very special occurrences.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just want to spend a little time acknowledging.
Yeah, that's an incredible story about the camp.
Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for people to know, when Muniraj and Sastraji came here and they chose where to put the temple, we brought up a cow and milked a cow in this area, and we did special ceremonies and things like that. So there's really a lot going on in this temple, and I'm sure a lot more that others could share.
Okay.
But I also want to acknowledge people who came then in 1995. I think it was Rombrosi, or 96, Rombrosi and Anand left the ashram, and that day I drove them to the airport. I had moved back, or was moving back to the ashram, and that very same day, unbeknownst, Premanand, who had planned to move here some time ago, but never gave a real date, he drove up that driveway that same day, and it was once again a confirmation that Babaji was going to take care of his home. And Premanand has been here for 25 years now, helping, and he's out doing batteries now. So I did highlight his story if anybody wants to read it on our website. I don't think he's going to be sharing here, but then also Jonathan arrived about a year after that, and maybe we can hear from Jonathan. And shortly after that, Annie and Dee showed up, and they wanted to start participating in the ashram too. And shortly after that, Anna Lou. And so we just have several people that could tell maybe a short thing about what they've, I mean, to me, it's like, what do you feel? Why are you here? And what have you done? Do you want to share a couple words, Jonathan? You have to come closer.
I'm not sure I have any pointed thing to say, but I guess I came here to visit Radhasham in '87, and then went back to Missouri, and I guess I think it was in '95, fall of '95, I had, I guess, the time and means and notion to come out here, and it was like fall Navratri, and I must have communicated with someone.
Probably Radhasham.
Or you.
Mm-hmm.
Radhasham, I don't think was around.
Oh, that's
at
right.
that point. And Rambrosi and Ananda were here. So perhaps you and Ananda, Rambrosi, were probably who I was around the most, and Ramluri came up a lot, and I think Ganesh and Narayani came up a fair amount, and I'm not sure I have any clear recollections. Maybe Gayatri, maybe you were here. So I enjoyed it. I was here maybe for 10 or 11 days through Navratri, and then I came back for Navratri the next fall and stayed a month. And yeah, had a good experience, and came back.
How many years are you there now?
Since the first of summer in '97.
24 years. So, okay.
Yay!
Yay. Why do you stay here?
I don't know. That song, I was telling you that. It's great. Hearing everyone's stories. I related well, I suppose, with, what we would call the sadhana or discipline. I was very into the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, and I had that going. And now it's a little much more fleeting, but here I am, things changed.
Yay.
And I don't know what to expect in the future.
I have one little story I want to share. Ramlota and I had been, I think, 5 years together, and I was president of both the Samaj and the ashram, and I didn't want to be anymore. And we split up, and I got to Mexican and Native American roadman, and we started doing healings, peyote ceremonies around the world, actually. And I felt that was my calling. So I wanted to leave, and I told Muniraj, I want to resign. And he was like, no. And so I asked Aurelio for a peyote ceremony, because I said, I've got to get clear on this. It's a real conflict inside. And Danesh came, and Chris came, and you were there, Ambarosi and Ananda and everything. We did this ceremony. And afterwards, I was clear. The message from Babaji was follow your heart. And so I called Muniraj and I said, I am resigning, and I'm nominating Ramloti to take my place. And he was not happy at all, but I followed my heart, and look at the beautiful result of that. I have to say, yay, thank you, Aurelio, thank you, everybody. That was good. I'm not you know, even people coming to the ashram wanting to know about saris and chandan and all this stuff. And I just wanted to say, it doesn't matter. Don't even focus on that. I just wanted to get rid of the shop, give it to Marge, forget the commerce. Let's really get down to some serious, you know, ego burning thing. And it was just constant having to be happy and put on a face and Om Namah Shivaya. No, it was just, I'd had 13, I was up to here. And I have to say, and I remember because Pujari was married to Mohini at one point, and I went to him because I wanted to marry him, first of all. And I was like, and their marriage was not good. And I said, why did you marry him to this woman? And he said, he could have said no. And so thank you, Pujari, if you're still on the call, because that gave me the strength to say no to him. And yeah, I have never regretted it a moment since. So I'm so glad, Ramloti, you were ready to come back, and it's turned out so beautifully.
Thank you, Gayatri. So I think, Annie, maybe you could tell your story about coming on Mother's Day in 1996.
Hello. Yes, I actually came to the ashram way before that because of Sandra Ray, what our wonderful ambassador for Babaji. And I come a couple of times because she was doing a workshop there. So I came up to the ashram. I can't remember going to Arti, but I know we did some prayers. We did some karma yoga. I actually put some dirt in some of the tires. Along with Premanand. This was in 93, I think. But anyway, after that, I'm trying to think of it. I had gone to India 5 times with Sandra for India Quest, for Navaratri, but I'd only been to the ashram a couple of times. So I ended up moving from Virginia to Santa Fe, and I was living in Santa Fe in 95, 96. And I never went to the ashram. It was only like 3.5, 4 hours away. So, but I was still going to India with Sandra and doing other workshops. But anyway, we, I had a house as we were living in, and she knew I'd gone to India. So she said, there's this ashram over in Crestone. And I said, oh yeah, I've been over there. And she said, well, why don't we go over there for the weekend? He was out of town. So I said, okay, I'll go over with you. So anyway, we went over. Of course, there are no accommodations at this time. And so we ended up staying the night at the ashram, but we slept on the shop floor. So anyway, we're leaving there, and I always say Babaji gives me the 2x4. So we're on our way back home, and I told her, I said, I think I want to start doing service there. So I got back to Santa Fe. Dee came home, and I said, Dee, we're going to start going to Crestone to the ashram 1 week a month for doing service. And he said, okay, anytime I say, let's go here, let's go there, you know, so he said, okay. So for 1 year, we did come and spend a week at the ashram doing any kind of karma yoga that we had to do, from pulling weeds to cooking to one of the things, we were living in Santa Fe, they had not tiled the floor in the kitchen. So they had picked out some tile, some salteo tile in Taos. So Dee had a great big truck. So every time we would come to the ashram, well, 2 times we came to the ashram, we brought the tile with us, and because it was so heavy, I mean, it wouldn't even make it all in one trip. So we brought the tile. Not only did we bring the tile, we also laid the tile under the tutelage of Fred and Kailash, but there was a whole group of us. At this time, I don't even think, Ramloti, there was a kitchen table in the kitchen at that time, because it seems like we sat on the floor to eat. We had meetings on the floor after we had done it. So anyway, Dee and I, we were really enjoying this and had done it for quite some time. But the highlight of our day was after, I really love this. In the afternoons, we would walk up to the creek, up where the water's past the water system, and we would take our bath. So after our bath, of course, we did arati, and then we had dinner. But the highlight was going to sleep in the yurt with Loti and Prim and Jonathan and Dee with no electricity, no bathroom. So anyway, we had a great time because we were always playing jokes on each other. Either your sheets got sheeted if you had a mattress. I think we had sleeping bags, but anyway. So after almost a year, we were leaving Crestone. We got as far as the White Eagle, and I told, here comes the 2x4 again. I told Dee, I looked over at Dee just to pass the White Eagle, and I said, I think we ought to move to Crestone. And he said, right. We literally turned the car around, or his truck, and we went, I think, to the White Eagle. I think it was Joyce. Who had the real estate? Was it Joyce?
Joyce.
Yeah. Okay. And we talked to her about renting a house. We ended up renting a house from her, went back to Santa Fe, called the movers. We had stuff in storage as well as the townhouse. And in a couple of months, we were at the ashram. Well, we weren't at the ashram. We were in our house. But for the next 7 years, I ran the Mahalakshmi shop. So anyway, it was a wonderful time. We still have so many memories and stories we can't tell. But anyway, Babaji is, my life changed the first time I ever went to Haircon for Navaratri in 1992. It's never been the same. And I have, I just Boli Baba Ki Jai. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Annie.
You're welcome.
My heart still cries whenever I think of us together. We have so much fun. But when you talked about sleeping on the floor in the shop, I we missed somebody. Prakash, I can only see the top of your hat. There you are.
Oh, there he is.
This is the man who slept on the floor in the shop. I still remember him sleeping in the closet in the shop. And it wasn't because the yurt was too full of all of us hoodlums. I think he wanted a piece.
That's when I turned the camera back on so I can participate. Yeah, I came to the ashram in a cold day. Came over from the other side of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. I had heard about the ashram from somebody that actually had spent time in Crestone. He came to visit in Westcliff, and we were talking about it. So there seemed some sort of exchange. I went to Crestone. He stayed in Westcliff, which is clear across the mountains. Anyway, I came to the ashram. Cold day, winter storm. I had a backpack, nowhere else to go. And somebody had given me the Om Namah Shivaya mantra, maybe a year or two prior or something. And I didn't even know that was the dominant mantra at the ashram. So while I was standing in the kitchen, I'm looking around, there's Om Namah Shivaya on all the walls. I'm thinking, I need to just be here. And I think it was Carol, she was there. Fred was outside smoking cigarettes, doing something. And I want to stay here. And I could tell, Carol was a little uneasy. I was like, big German guy. What's he doing here? How did he get here? Anyway, long story short, they all warmed up to me. And I ended up helping Fred and Kailash and everybody else there to stuck with the walls and do this and do that. I don't even remember what we all did, but we got it all done. And that time, I think I stayed for maybe 6 months or something like that. And of course, I'm always been traveling. I got NC feet and I just had to go. But over the years after that, I always came back at least once a year or so, stayed for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and, did my karma yoga and smoked cigarettes with Fred and worked on the Earthship. remember definitely the times in the yurt, lots of funny evening nights there. I got my initiation in the sound of music from Ramloti there. And some mores at the fireplace, etc., etc. Yeah, beautiful time. And just being up at the ashram, looking into San Luis Valley, just an amazing time, and certainly something that I definitely needed for my life, and it's still nurturing me today. You know, I now live in Austin, which is hours and hours and hours away, so I don't come to visit that often as I probably would like. But I will show back up, and again, as a surprise, unannounced, just the way you guys like it. Great times at the ashram. Love Ann and Dee, of course. Ann always reminded me of my aunt, similarly styled and just wonderful person. Dee as well, just his humor. Ramloti, the ever shining light to keep everybody happy there. And Prem, of course, who's now, I guess, more and more withdrawn a little bit. I can understand all that, but great times at the ashram, always a good time, always healing, always nurturing, refreshing, and putting you back on track where you need to be. So forever thankful, forever grateful and thankful that I got to be there.
Thank you, Prakash. Yeah. And you went to Harricon one time too. And we did.
Right.
We also did tours around the country, so there's lots of.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, the Boli Baba Bhajan band. Yes. I have, I just had my green smoothie this morning. I'm still doing it. Yes, that was a lot of fun. I guess the longer I sit here, the more I remember, but highlights all across the board. No question about it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Muni Raj, for giving me my name. Jonathan, everybody that I ever met up there. I just can only say thank you.
Thank you, Prakash.
I'll come see you soon.
Okay.
Honolulu say something? Hi, Honolulu.
Yeah, Honolulu, another good European brought to Crestone to straighten us out.
It's been so interesting to hear everybody's stories, and I really enjoyed that. I sort of saw the continuation. I mean, most of the people who talked today were there at the beginning, and I discovered the ashram in 1990, but and then I moved to Crestone in 2001, I think, 2001. And I saw all the growth afterwards. The dorm had just been finished, and I was there when the temple was the temple was expanded and all that. I remember climbing in through the window because we couldn't get into the doors anymore. And I never was interested in doing ceremonies, and I could never understand or learn the Sanskrit mantras and things. So I just took the broom and started cleaning, and I guess that's what I did. Clean and take care of the temple. And anyway, it was 7 years, and I just have such incredible memories from that time, and it's still home in some way. It was bad health that chased me away, and I was able to recover at a lower altitude. But yeah, it's an amazing place. And Ramloti, you taught me so much. One of my big hang-ups has been to surrender. And you were such a good example of surrender. All of you up there. Thank you. And I never forget that when I had my stroke, I fell into Annie's arms. I could have fallen on the floor.
I'm so happy you recovered so beautifully.
Thank you.
And Prim was right on the spot. I said, call 911. She's having a stroke. Call 911. She's having a stroke. And we got them there quickly. And all I did was say, Om Namah Shivaya in your ear.
Thank you.
And Baba Ki Jai.
Yeah. It's so nice to have you in the shop. We were such a good shopkeeper, and you kept the place wonderful, and there was always your big smile and everything. It was so lovely.
It was my privilege to be there.
There's certainly a great team, and it's Baba's team that has grown this ashram, as all of you have heard, from one step to another, from David, Lorraine, and Gayatri, and from Rosie, and on and on. It's just been Baba's blessings, and I just want to have, it's been a couple hours. I mean, Malia's on. She did a tour with us. There's so many people that have been part of the board or part of this ashram. Elaine is here. She's come forever. And Sita lived here for a couple of winters. And it just could go on and on for hours for sure. And if anybody wants to just say hello or a quick something before we close off, you're welcome to unmute. It's a long story and a long history. And hopefully more people will have time to share more of their stories on individual satsangs and satsangs to come up as well. The next week, we're going to be doing a satsang 1 hour earlier with the Dutch ashram. And Pujari will have a lot to say about that because he was one of the founders of the Dutch ashram, and he and a few others have been helping to organize the Dutch people to share some of their story. And yeah, Pujari's been here many years, many times, and done many tours around the country with me as well. We've done.
Yeah, it's very lovely to catch up and it's my American family. I feel so close to the ashram. And next week, I think we've asked for about 40 people in Holland to participate. Let's see how many show up, but for sure, I think 20. You will get to know the Dutch group who keep the thing going there, which is also really jewel. I'm so happy that I've been able to detach quite a bit. Since one good year, I'm not a chairperson anymore, but it's functioning pretty good. So very welcome for the next week. Yeah, Baba keeps everything going. We think we do something, but it's always Babaji's moving everything. We just players on the scene, and he's Shakespeare. He keeps the movement going, and it's surprising. I feel the love of this family, and the similar love is happening in Holland. So one soup. Very happy to connect with you all.
And then the week after will be Navratri, and we're going to have a satsang a bit later at noon that day. And that will be on Babaji and the Divine Mother. So all of you that have stories, it'll be open for everyone to share. And it doesn't mean you met Babaji. It just means, what is the Divine Mother in your heart? And has Babaji, how does Baba show you that, or whatever it might be. So that'll be lovely. And then I think Gayatri's hopefully helping me organize one for the Italian, because, oh my gosh, there's so much bhakti and love in Italy too. And actually several ashrams there. So we go on, and it's wonderful to get to know each other and to share the love in our hearts that motivates us all to serve Babaji in this way. It's a big blessing. So does anybody else want to say anything before we say goodbye?
Say goodbye.
Okay, everybody can wave goodbye.
Boli Baba, Boli Baba, Boli Baba, Boli Baba.
Jai. Jai Mahamaya ki Jai.
Jai.
Yay.
Shakti
Yay.
ki